Man, remember last time when we did the pod, which was genuinely incredible, by the way, and it's nice to be on your podcast today, but I was dying. Like, I was... Okay, this sounds bad when we're talking about what we talked about last time, but I was really, really, really sick. Like, do you remember? That. And I was like, mate, I actually was like, I don't think I should come in because I could barely get out of bed.
I feel like whenever I come to town, you crook.
Well, you know what? I don't actually get sick too often, but that time I must have had a really bad virus, and then this time I had food poisoning.
Well, remember I was crook last time too.
Yeah.
I was fighting back the flu.
Yeah. I had just back to me for a second.
Yeah.
Sorry, because I'm the guest.
You are the guest.
Yeah, I appreciate that you're trying to bring yourself in. It's about me today.
Yeah, that is fair.
I had food poisoning for the first time. Have you ever had that?
I feel like I have, but
You'd know.
Yeah, I have. I've had it at times, but it's always funny for me because with CF, the gut's not great.
Okay. So
I'm like, I don't know if it's like, and I'm also allergic to onions, so sometimes I'm just like, has someone slipped some silent onion?
Are you FODMAP?
No, but my sister is. I can eat garlic and I'm sweet.
It's a very interesting start to a podcast.
This is a very interesting start. I have to say, Dyl Buckley, you're one of the most elusive characters I've ever met.
Really?
I feel like everyone has a Dyl Buckley in their life where, like, you feel like it's like you know that you're in the vicinity of them, but they've just got so much going on.
No,
you don't know when they're going to pop up.
I apologise this morning. We caught up yesterday for lunch, which was great with Ali, who, geez, catching up with you two is a thing in itself because it's just wisdom everywhere. Like, Ali's a really, really good friend of mine, and he's been a massive supporter of mine. You should get him on the pod.
Yeah, I would love to.
You really should because he's got a lot to offer. Very interesting guy. And we caught up for lunch yesterday. We'll talk about him in a second. And then this morning, I was like, fuck, mate, like, let's get this pod going. We moved a couple of things around. But I knew we're going to go into it today. So I didn't want to waste a chat this morning. And I also because I had the food poisoning and I'm going away tonight, I had 2 hours of, like...
solid work.
Solid time just to go, you know what? When I'm in with Bradley with a lot to talk about, I want to have a lot to talk about. Let's fucking get into it.
I like that. I will say the one thing that you said to me when I got here last time, don't do the pod before the pod.
Don't do the pod before the pod, man.
I like it.
Never.
I like it.
Because you obviously came in this morning, we're in the studio, we're working together, but I'm like, can't risk that. Let's get into it.
I will say, so you're such a kind, cuddly character, but let me tell you, I think the dog was revealed in you this morning, that, like, heart of a lion. We just so happen to be pulling up at the studio at the same time. We're walking towards the studio, and old mate out on the street, he wanted a crack.
I'm not proud of that, but I think from that was actually a little bit embarrassing. Lowered my colours a bit, but one thing I want to get better at is I don't know her name, and I'm fucking, for someone who does this all the time, I should be more prepared on quotes and the person's name. She's absolutely fantastic. She was actually just on the Stephen Bartlett podcast. You're going to know who I'm talking about. And she has this theory called "Let Them."
I think I've seen a clip about this,
yeah.
But I don't know.
So it's very well known. It's the "Let Them" theory, which is basically like something, let them. And that is the synopsis of it. And it's the context is something goes on, she explains that in life we try and control the narrative all the time. You always want to have control of the narrative, especially other people. And I'm definitely at a stage now where I've got a lot better. I don't really care what people think of me. But what I do care of is, like, actions that have been taken or things that, I'm like, fuck, like, wouldn't have done this or that, or this didn't play out the way I wanted, and you can ruminate on those things. And listen to her talk just on a snippet on that show, and it's just this theory of let them. Just like, you know what, they did this, let them. It's like they don't want to do this. It's like, well, fucking just let them. Like, what is that control? It's like, let that go and just, like, fucking move on. Who cares?
It's easier said than done, though, isn't it?
It is, but it's actually not. Sorry, it's not, but it is.
So here's
it's a
how
skill.
I see it.
It's a skill.
It is a skill. And you really have to, like, know how to control your ego, because there's two things going through your head.
I'm probably not talking about the guy this morning in that situation, by the way.
No,
I'm probably talking
correct.
about more
Like,
holistically, just
more
in life.
holistically,
Yeah.
right? But it's like one of those things where, say the guy like this morning, that happens and you go, if I don't say something, does he think I'm a cat?
Yeah, so just to give the context to the listeners this morning what happened, what even did happen, I don't even know, but we're walking, you and I were just having a chat, walking, got my dog, and all of a sudden this guy just like walks into us, and he sort of looked at us and like said something like we were, and I'm like, mate, we're just fucking walking, like what are you talking about?
See, I didn't hear it, but then I heard you and I was like, oh, he must have said something. So
yeah, he said something and then like looked at Frank and like nearly like was sort of actioning my dog to like kick the dog, and I'm like, what the fuck?
I will say that I felt safe in your presence though.
Look, I don't think it's a safe thing. If you had turned around, I would have fucking hit the legs. Would have hit the getaway
The
sticks,
getaway
as
sticks.
you like to use. So there wasn't much behind it. I'm definitely not like, I don't want to fight anyone or anything, but it was just a very weird situation. It was very like, I just thought it was a very rude thing to do.
It was very rude. You know what I will say though? Isn't it funny that if that was Frank in that situation, right? Like when your dog walks past another dog and you go, "Don't do it,
Oh, it's
don't
worse.
do it."
Yeah.
Hey, chill. And as soon as they start barking, you don't listen.
No. Yeah, look, Frank's, and that applies to her both theoretically and psychologically, everything. She's a fucking psycho, my dog. And we're actually looking to try and really, it's 7 years too late. She's, we've got the baby now as well, and it's been a nightmare trying to introduce them together. And, oh, God, that's one thing that does take up some mental space that the let them theory doesn't actually clear for me, unfortunately. But yeah, it's good.
Mate,
Did we clarify the let them theory in the end?
I think we did.
We spoke enough
Essentially,
about
something happens that's out of your control.
Let them.
Let them. I'm not going to be fazed by it. I'm not going to lose sleep over that.
Yeah, it's like, it's just let them. You can't explain it any better than that. Like, it's just like, you know, it's, and just to your point when you're like, it's not that easy. You're right, it's not that easy, but I think like a lot of these things, like, call it just growing up or I hate the fucking term these days, self-development. I think it's the worst term ever. I think it's just growing up. Like, people have been doing this for a while. It's happened before. Like, this self-development thing isn't a new phenomenon. It's not a new phenomenon. It's not a new phenomenon. That word is a new phenomenon. But it's been going on for a while. People have been doing it, like our parents, their grandparents. Like, you just grow up, you get smarter, you learn shit, you learn what you fucked up, you learn from it. It's just called growing up.
I have a fickle relationship with the self-development space.
Yeah.
Because I find that
It's so good, but it just gets thrashed, or
it gets a little bit thrashed, and especially as a speaker, you know, you're exposed to a lot of it, and I often think a lot of self-development is bullshit. Because I think the ultimate, like, unlock to growing and just growing up as a human in general is you have to know yourself first. So you can listen, Stephen Bartlett, Speak of the Devil, talks about this quite a bit. He often references a guy that he used to work with at his old company, Social Chain. And he said that this guy consumed all the self-development, read all the books, listens to all the podcasts, was dropping all the quotes, but he was the most emotionally immature person in the office. And because he just wasn't self-aware. So you can consume all of the self-help, but if you don't know who you are and you're not aware enough to know where you're fucking up and where you can get better, it's useless.
Self-awareness is an incredible skill to have. It's a really interesting point. I've never thought about it from that point of view. And even when you're saying that, like, I can definitely understand, like, you resonate with people in your life. You're like, fuck yeah, I reckon I'm picturing a few right now that, like, read all the books. And sometimes they'll message me and be like, oh, do this. And I'm like, have you done that? Like, you know, like, do that as well. They're not saying that I definitely can read some books as well, but there's that's a really good point. I look at it funnily on the other hand as well, from naivety is bliss. Is that a saying?
Ignorance is bliss.
Ignorance is bliss. In the fact that, like, somewhere in the middle is the right option, right? Because I felt, if I look back at my career and even the career I'm in now, I'm sometimes too self-aware. The fact that I overanalyze everything and then sometimes go, fuck, I'm actually in a worse position than I actually am, technically. Like, so, and the other argument I look at that is, like, I look at some players that, like, for example, was so self-aware that I was like, everything I didn't do to like the nth degree and didn't finish my weights like how I wanted, or didn't do the extra push-up after the push-up. And it's like, the old thing of like, let's do 10 push-ups, do one more. It's like, we'll do one more. And then I was like, we'll do one more just in case for the people that are doing that as well.
All day.
And I was like, well, fuck, if I didn't do that, I was like, oh, it's too self-aware. Like I'm not getting it out of myself. Whereas those other people were just naive. They just go about it, do their thing. They don't overthink anything. They just fucking go out and dominate. And I'm like, what the hell? But I know you've got to have a mix of both.
It's such a balance. I heard Ben Crow talking about this the other day, who, for me, Ben Crow is one of those guys that he is so wide. I think he taps into the balance of self-development and growth unbelievably well.
Mm.
In fact, I always say this, I have to stop using that word because it's not unbelievable, because I experience it all the time through this guy. But one thing that he was saying the other day is talking about the power of play. And he was referencing, I can't remember whose quote it was, but it was something along the lines of, there is not a shred of evidence to prove that life is serious. Have a bit of fun. Play sometimes, relax. Like, don't be so... And because I'm probably similar to you, Dyl, I would like to think I'm self-aware, but often I overanalyze. And so I can leave a podcast and go, oh, man, I stumbled on that word 35 minutes in. Mate, I didn't look sharp today. I was a bit sluggish. And then you'll get a message from someone that says, best podcast you've ever done. And I'm like, maybe I live in my head a little bit too much.
Oh, we all do, man. That quote, we're all the main characters of our own story is such a true thing. And I think, one thing that's really helped me this year is just realizing that no one fucking cares in the best way. Like, no one gives a fuck about, no one cares about you as much as you think. And there's a beauty in that. Like, the people that love you care about you. But like, people listening to this show right now, I'm overanalyzing what I'm saying, right? They're like, oh, this guy's a fucking idiot, like whatever. But they'll never think about me again. So like, who cares?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Like, I'm not. And when I'm saying this, like, I'm talking to myself because I still obviously have those insecurities and stuff of overthinking it. But I'm like, oh, fuck, I don't care. Like, whatever. I care about the things that I care about. I'm getting a lot better, truly a lot better at just realizing that no one actually cares about me as much as I care about me, which is a good thing because it makes it a lot easier.
How closely linked to this realization do you think, is this a product of you becoming a father? Because isn't that like the ultimate perspective shifter, that now there is something that is so much bigger than you? It's almost hard to think about yourself.
Yeah, look, they're probably related for sure. I think one's the fatherhood thing is so much. Oh, it's crazy. Like, it just, the stuff that, you've heard parents talk about all the time, but it's crazy because you feel your love is like no one else's. Like, it's more than, I'm like, people talk about their kids and I'm like, yeah, no, but I love my kids more. Like, kids, I've got one kid. And people are like, oh, I love when I get home. I'm like, no, I love when I get home more than you. But that's parenthood, right? That's
For
like
sure.
the part of it, that it's just this thing. And I think for me, it took us, Juz and myself, my wife, took us sort of 2 years to, 2 and a bit years to have a kid. Went through some fertility sort of issues and all that sort of process around that. And I think what that's given us is, even though you get an incredible perspective on children when you have it, we've had even a bigger one for us personally, because it's we haven't really, every moment we've really cherished, because it's like even the shit times you're like, oh,
How good's this?
yeah, you're like still like, fuck, look, this isn't great, but like still it's fucking awesome, like. So for me, that's been a life-changing thing, as it is for every parent. And I joke when I say that my love's more than everyone's. I'm sure there's equal love from every parent out there. They love their kids, but it's bloody incredible, man. And I'm even thinking about it now. Like, after this, we're heading away, and a big thing for me this year around sort of values and who I want to be and what I want to do and stuff was I actually work with Ali on my sort of stuff is a massive mentor for me in my values, and one of them's moments. And
I like that.
yeah, moments is like it's one of his things he does through his program, Recalibrate. But basically, what it means is, you know, when you like reflect on a year and you look back through your camera roll and you pick the moments, you're like, fuck, that was a good moment. Like, you know, went on a golf trip with my mates, went to Noosa with the family, caught up with Brad in Melbourne and did the pod and had lunch yesterday. And it's like, how can you make as many of those as you can? And how can you actually identify which ones are moments and then you plan them? So for me, that's like what I want to do this year. It's like, you know, we've already planned going to Europe. I'm trying to book in a golf trip with my mates. I'm trying to, you know, there's something popped up the other day online, like a couple of weeks ago. My wife, it was like $40 flights to Noosa. And we're like, fucking why not? Like, that's a moment. Let's do it. So just trying to find those times and live in that sort of space of making moments.
I had a bit of a realisation at the end of 2023. So I sat down, and it had been a particularly like hectic couple of years, right? Like 3 years of chasing the dream that I left my career to set out and do, and so much along the way that chopped and changed and was challenging and exciting and fun and all these incredible moments along the way. But I decided to sit down at the end of the year and just write, what have I been really proud of over the last 4 years, and what moments in looking back on 2023 did I love the most? And I had this incredible list of things, and I sat there reading through it at the end, and I had this realization that over the last couple of years I've been so focused on the human doing, like what I was trying to build, the platform I was trying to create, the professional success that I wanted to have and was forecasting, that I was like, wow, I forgot about the human being and how much I've grown as a man. Like, I really feel like at 24 when I started this, I was kind of a kid still, you know, like I just really didn't know what I wanted from my life. I was a little bit unsure about what the future was going to look like, as we all are, but I just didn't know what I wanted it to look like. And I sat there and reflected at the end of last year and thought, man, I'm really proud of who I've become in that process. And it really reaffirmed for me the importance of remembering the human side of life. And that really, like we said before, nothing is that serious.
Yeah.
Like, all of the best moments were wrapped up in connections and moments. And it's such a great reminder. I love that you've identified that for yourself too.
Well, yeah, I didn't, but working with someone, and Ali, his program he does with Vin Gian, who he works with Recalibrate, it was a really cool exercise. And what you did then is exactly that. There's two things that you said there that I loved, and one was about the, you know, working out, you know, you were striving to do all this stuff, and that was a really bad sort of, I was listening to that. I'm trying to say that was a really bad wrap up of what you were saying, but I was so intrigued about what you were saying. I'm ready to communicate back. Anyway, I'm just explaining how conversation works. You say something, I think, I talk back. The part you're saying about that was really cool. But one thing I'm really, really, if I'm going to be completely honest, I'm really proud of myself, and I'm really happy and grateful that I'm in this place at the moment, is I am fully aware that the journey is way more important than the destination. Like,
it's a cliche, but you don't believe it until you have the realization.
A cliche. It is like, as I was saying it, I was like vomiting in my mouth, because that's like the word. Like, it's just a vomit quote, right? But that's it's known for, like, it's a good quote, right? Because it's fucking true. Like, they actually ring true. That's why it's like a cliche quote. It's probably the most cliche quote ever, because it works and it like actually makes sense. Yeah. But like, I'm talking about that in the situation I'm in right now. Like, in the back room, I had those just 2 hours of punching stuff out. I was chatting with my mate Will on the phone about some stuff that we're trying to build. Chatting with Moff and Darcy about Perth. I'm chatting with Scott about some Adelaide trip and this YouTube stuff we're doing. And I think what I've realised is, like, if you have, the best thing I would say to people is try and get in an engaged environment where you're aiming towards something, but realise that the aiming towards it is actually the part that's better than it. Because what we're building and what we're doing, and I don't take for granted how lucky I am, how grateful, how fortunate. I get goosebumps even saying this right now. to be in the position I am, because I am fucking just like so grateful, and I'm in it now. Like, I'm not worried about, we want to, in a year's time, I'd love to upgrade these studios, right, and go to a bigger place and have some better mics and cameras and, do shit. But I'm like, no, the fun part is actually working it out and getting there.
For sure.
So when you're saying before, and I know you're aware of this, but I was listening to your story about that, and I'm like, the shit that you said about you didn't realize you were growing as a person, and it's like, that's exactly it. You're in the part. Maybe it hasn't got to the stage yet where you're grateful for it, because there is stages. Like, you can't be just grateful for it when you're fucking just starting out and 2 weeks into something you're trying to do. But it will get to that stage, and then you'll be like, yeah, no, this is the good part. It's not that cool achieving. I'm being completely honest. Like, we'll land something. Like, we really want something. We're like, oh, I really want to get this. Really want to get this. I'll get it, and then I'm like, okay, whatever. So it's on to the next thing. So
it just becomes the new reality.
Well, yeah, I don't even know what it is, but it's just like you want the like fucking new shiny car. You get it. Sweet, I got the car. Like, what's next? What's the next journey to the next thing? So just to literally harp on it one more time, because I just am so passionate about this. It's the journey to the shiny car, not actually getting the shiny car.
So there's an incredible quote, and this is literally turning into two podcasters having a quote off, but...
Oh, I think the last time was as well. I think you actually get the quotes correct, though.
Yes,
I just sort of butcher them. I just sort of like...
Maybe it's just the confidence.
I just sort of botch mine on the way through and stammer through them. Stammer.
It keeps it real, though,
Stutter.
Yeah. So there's a quote from Jimmy Carr. Incredible man.
Yeah.
Love his stuff, and an incredibly deep thinker.
He's a cool guy, hey?
Quite insightful, really cool. And I heard him on Modern Wisdom, and this quote that just resonated with me was, trajectory is more important than position. And that speaks to that. Like, enjoy the quest of getting to where you want to go, because when you get to the top, there's no further trajectory to keep going if you're playing on that game of moving up the ranks. And he said, like, it's funny, I think that most podcasters who are sitting in the middle trying to grow are probably happier than someone who's on the top.
They are.
Thinking about, fuck, we can't fall.
Yeah. No, like... Yeah, fuck, this is going to turn into a quote off. But there's so many things that I can sort of remember myself and the stuff that inspires me that I continually listen to and reflect on and go back to. Like, my YouTube saved and like the stuff that I watch is crazy about that sort of stuff. But completely agree. Yeah.
One thing I'll say about you, I just really got to compliment you on this, is I think your selflessness to, like, walk away from your AFL career before 100 games, so Maxi really has to earn his spot in the draft.
I'm really happy that you've actually, like, acknowledged that, because not many people have. Like,
yeah, because I think, like, your old man really stitched you up. You know?
He gave me the easy option a little bit, didn't he?
He did. Like, his stellar career really set you up.
And that's why I was like, look, I sort of want to just let him have that. Let him have that. I don't want to outshine. I just want to, like...
to know Maxi will know when he got there, he really earned it.
I think he needs it. It's like the whole thing of, like, Dad drove the Lamborghini, I crashed it, like, and now we're starting back again.
Yeah.
Walking
Maxi's
to work.
Walking.
Have you heard? Yeah, no, I'm walking. I think now he's like jogging.
Yeah.
For anyone out there who hasn't heard that quote, it's you do it. It's good.
It's incredible. I'll spare them. I won't do it.
You won't do it? Can we try and butcher our way through it just to give them context? Because I think it's quite a funny joke that you made.
This guy, the quote is essentially around the fact that he says...
It's generations of males, right?
It's generation of men. And he says, so my grandfather... walk to work or walk to school every day. My father was driven.
Yep.
He said, I drove.
Okay, you fucked this more than I would.
Okay.
I'll go back. Okay. My grandfather walked to work.
Yeah.
My father drove a Ford or something like that. Then it's like, I drove a Mercedes. My son will drive a Lamborghini. His son will walk to work.
Yeah. And then he says...
Basically, like, it goes in that, like, tough men tough times create
Create
tough
tough
men.
men.
Weak times create weak. Like,
Tough men create easy times create tough men.
that's the one.
Fuck,
Okay, fuck
teamwork.
me.
We
If
got
you're
there.
still here, guys,
Yeah, we got
apologies.
there. Yeah.
We appreciate you for hanging on.
Yeah,
but
that
that
hurts a
was
little bit.
tough to even like. If you thought it was tough to listen to, it was tough to be in the studio while we're trying to do that. But I really like that analogy. It's actually quite
Yeah.
great.
Well, disregard my disingenuous compliment there, but I will say I'll give you a genuine one.
Oh, okay, thank you.
One thing I've really taken from you in the last couple of months, and I was actually saying this to Soph the other day, so I feel quite inspired by your journey in many ways. There's something that you said in the book, and I've heard you say on a couple of podcasts around this concept of when you started off, you had this dream of being like, I'm going to be the Rogan of Australia. I'm going to have the biggest podcast. I'm going to do the biggest numbers, and I'm going to have all this stuff. And what you've built is incredible. Really inspires me. But I love how you've come to this place in your life where you really understand how to walk the line between ambition and appreciation. We're at this point where you're like, actually, what I have now, where I can say, hey, Giles, let's book the tickets to Noosa and go enjoy a couple days. Like, the life you've created is really special. And I look at that as someone who's a couple years behind you in the podcast journey, to use that word again, but also just in life. You know, like, I'm a little bit younger than you, a little bit fresher than you.
Yep.
Not to rub that in.
So we're both quite fresh.
Yeah, we're both very fresh.
No, we're definitely not. I'm not.
But I'll say, like, it's inspiring to see, and I feel like you must feel, and you've kind of touched on it, very content with where life's at.
Content's a scary word because I don't want to ever. There's always that drive and stuff, but I am eternally grateful for everything that has both the good and the bad that I've experienced, because it's, you know, got us to where we are as a family, and with our son, and we're, you know, being able to sit down here with you today on a Thursday and talk about life. How the fuck is this?
Pretty special.
It nearly makes me like, how the fuck is this even happening right now? I don't know. But it's something that I actually struggle to reflect on a lot because I'm so scared of losing it. But that's why it's like I'm so aware of it, how lucky I am, that I think that I'm keeping myself in the best position to continue doing what I'm doing and growing and having fun and having this journey because I'm so aware. And what I'm trying to say is I'm not taking any of it for granted. And I'm very appreciative of what we can do. And it's interesting. I'm not saying, like, it sounds like I'm saying I'm Elon Musk or something. Everyone's got problems. Everyone's got struggles. I've got all these things that are going on. You know, we're doing heaps of shit in life. Like everyone, you know, everyone's got shit going on. But I just am very lucky that I work with really, really awesome people. And I want to take you to this point because it might give you even more context to how this has happened. And I'm writing this now so that I can, because I can show you where is it? I can go it off by heart, but also I want to sort of like take you through this document I did with Ali, because I think it'll give you an answer to how it's like happened. So if you look at my values and everything that I do is determined by these 4 facets. And like, that's why I think I've been able to design this lifestyle. Moments. That's one word. Talked about that earlier. Like making moments. Like all the events we're doing, like I'm going to Perth in March. I don't think that's going to make money at all. But I'm hoping it just covers the cost. I'm taking them off in Darcy. Do I need both of them there? Logistically, no, but I want both of them there because it'd be fucking fun. Environment, home and work, surrounding myself with the best people. Everyone here that I work with is smarter than me. Like, they are all like just good people. And honestly, none of them have actually, not many of them have prior education.
We were speaking about this before.
None of them actually do, like, what they've I was going to say education. They've all been to school and they're very literate. But none of what I'm trying to say is what they are doing in their roles. None have been formally trained or anything like that. Like, they done courses and stuff. I think besides maybe Sam and Adam's obviously an academic, but yeah, they're all just fucking good people, and we've put good people in roles. Freedom is my third one, and that's to be able to book the flight, to have the option to do certain things. And it's like, you don't often even take the option, but it's nice to just know that there is the option, if that makes sense. And growth. So growth is like, I just want to continually be growing as a person. I want to continually become a better dad, become a better son, test myself, do things that make me uncomfortable. I don't like this value, like, in terms of, it's not one that I go, oh yeah, let's grow today. Like, but it's one that I have to have there, because if I'm not growing, you're going backwards. So they're my 4, and that's how I think I get to do what I do.
I really like this because it's so in line with something that I've been working on lately. So part of what I want to speak a lot more about this year is, I know you would feel this and relate to it, but as someone who shares their story a lot, sometimes I get sick of my own story.
That's where you got to keep adding to it.
For sure. And so there's this great moment on Joe Rogan's podcast where he had Zach Bryan, country music artist, on. And I'm a country music fella. I like me some country music.
Can I tell you something? Tyler Childers is better than Zach Bryan.
Maybe I don't like country music that much because I don't know Tyler Childers.
Wow.
I don't know him by name.
Well, people will, if anyone out there is a
semi...
Yeah, you should, because you've just claimed you're a country music fella and you don't know Tyler Childers. So, have you seen Yellowstone?
Yes, I have.
Okay, well, Tyler Childers, a lot of his music's on Yellowstone.
Okay, so I know his music. I probably just don't know him by name.
You know Yellowstone. I don't think you... Which is... not much of a, like, I wouldn't be...
It's not a big stretch,
I wouldn't be putting that on, like,
it's
LinkedIn or, on a resume.
It's not super niche.
No.
I do like Zach Bryan, though. So, I like the diverse music list.
Sorry, yeah, back to
anyways, carry on.
Yeah.
One thing that Zach said on that podcast, I call him Zach just because, I know him well.
Well, his name's Zach as well.
Yeah. And
so, yeah.
And he said...
What else would you call him?
He said that one of the biggest mistakes that musicians make is they'll tour all year, and then they get to the end of the year and they've got like a mental block when it comes to writing. They've got like a block, and they're like, I don't have anything to write about. He's like, well, of course you didn't, because you've literally lived the same 2 days on repeat. Stage, perform, sound check, after party, day to recover, and you do the same thing again. And it's like, at the end of a year, you've lived no new experiences. And so to make great art, you need to live. And I really love that concept. Love that concept. And for me, in looking back on the last year or so, one of the things that really stood out to me is as a great example of how adding something or a new element to your story can open windows was I done that eulogy video where for the episode we wrote our own eulogies. And that was an exercise essentially in appreciation. That's
growth
us.
Though, man, too. Like,
it's growth.
Even thinking about that now, like, that's something that is exactly that value. It's like, that's fucking hard to do.
Well, I feel like the one thing that the eulogy did for me is when I sat down, I thought, if I had to write my own eulogy for my funeral, and I only had 3 minutes, part of the fun of the exercise was you had to condense it, because
that's actually better than
you could sit there and write something for 20 minutes, but if you've only got 3, you're going to really focus on what's important. And so for me, it like really tightly informed me of what my values are and what I really value in my life. And the main thing I spoke about was my connections with my family. And I found it was just so interesting that as I put that video out and then like done the SBS Insight show off the back of it, wrote an opposite editorial for SBS off the back of it, and started to get all these opportunities to talk about that. As I was getting those opportunities, I further informed myself, like, what is really important to me about the opportunity to make the most of life, because that's what death does, right? It informs us that life is fragile, it's not infinite, it is finite, and if you have this finite amount of time, how do you want to use it? And so for me, like that exercise is something that has informed me about what I want to start sharing more of, like the stuff that's really important. Because I often get the frustration that as a keynote speaker, you can share all of these profound thoughts and ideas, and they can sound super sexy and it can look super slick on stage, and you can sound super intelligent. You know, you get some of these speakers that sound so smart. But how come everyone's just back at the conference the next year and nothing's changed?
Yeah, you got to give some. I think that I love that you've brought that up, because it's a big bugbear for me in this whole space at the moment of like, and I know that you can only ingest like a 60-second clip, right? So it's quite hard to give takeaways. But everything that I do in the sense of, Dyl and Friends, and when I have someone on like yourself, that's incredibly inspiring and a great like person, it's always like that. I want takeaways because motivation's great, right? But like, unless you can actually go away and do something with it, like it just is.
There's a difference between inspiration and transformation.
Oof.
You like that? I knew you'd like that one.
Daddy Longlegs. I hadn't heard that one before.
Cracker, eh?
What is it again?
There's a difference between inspiration and transformation.
Oof.
Because we've all been inspired.
Inspired?
I'm inspired on a daily basis. I'll see a clip, I'll listen to a podcast. But I often wonder, like, how come nothing's changed?
Oh, mate, I sit on TikTok and watch those videos, and I'm fucking.
You had a dream,
you want to run.
You gotta want it better than you want to breathe. Yeah,
pretty much.
And you're like, it moves the needle for a minute.
Man, that stuff serves a purpose. I think it's fantastic.
It does.
It's like you look at a marketing funnel. That's top of funnel. Like that's getting everyone in.
Correct.
And then as you move down, you need to start having some like takeaways and some actual like put some things into practice. Which is awesome. So I'd never shit can any of that stuff. I think it's fantastic. But I just think if you're consuming content, get in it here. Get in at the top of funnel with the inspiration and the TikToks. I love them. I'm a massive consumer. But then you got to start getting into your, I reckon, like your Emma Murrays or your actual clinical like professionals, like your Hubermans and stuff like that. That then actually give you evidence-based things to take away.
Have you ever read the book Atomic Habits?
I have not.
So I've not read the book.
I've bought it. I've got it on my Kindle. I have not read it.
I'm going to try and convince you here. I haven't read it myself, but I want to pick it up because...
Are we both discussing a book that we haven't read?
We haven't read, correct.
Okay. It's a first.
I will say, though, I've consumed a lot of James Clear. I read his newsletter.
Yeah.
And I've listened to him on a bunch of podcasts. Okay. And I feel like it's convinced me to read the book.
Okay.
I'm a lazy reader.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hear
me out for a second.
I'm just thinking of the people listening to this, of two fucking idiots who are talking about a book that neither of them have read. But watched a couple TikToks on him.
Okay. So bear with me here. Bear with me here.
Yep.
So one of the things that I heard him say, which had a profound impact on me last year, was... Now I feel like I'm trying to make sure I nail...
It's hard when you haven't read the book.
Yeah, I got to make sure I nail this. He spoke about systems.
Yep.
And the power of systems. Now, I can't even remember the quote, but I've quoted it once from the podcast. But that is awful.
Mate, this sounds... Mate,
You've jinxed me.
This sounds like an episode of Dyl and Friends. Okay? I do this all the time.
Right, I've spent too much time.
I literally do this all the time. Bring something up that I have no fucking idea about and then just go, you know what? Don't worry about it. But I apologise if I threw you off. But what I more meant was, I'm sure there's a good lesson in it, but I hadn't read it.
You've really thrown me off, but I feel like I'm getting it.
Yep, that's fine.
It's coming back. The inspiration's coming back. That I'll get back to you on that.
Get back to it. Yeah.
But one of the other things that I really heard him talking about yesterday on Sarah Grinberg's podcast, A Life of Greatness.
I haven't heard that one.
A wonderful creator out of Melbourne. She's actually one of the producers for Hamish and Andy.
I'm going to write this down.
Mate, she gets great guests. Sarah, I've had Sarah on the show. She's a lovely human being and full of wisdom herself. But she gets great guests, man.
Fantastic. I'd love to check that out.
She's had some of the smartest people in the world.
How do you spell Grinberg?
Grynberg. Sarah's Sarah's wonderful.
No, this is,
the quotes just hit me.
Luke Powers. Luke.
listen to me for a second, because I've just got it.
100%.
We rarely rise to the level of our goals, but rather fall to the level of our systems. What a great quote. Because you think about it, how many people at this point in the year have set incredible goals for themselves, and they're trying to rise to the occasion of achieving something that's a little bit out of reach. And I'm all in favour of setting lofty goals as something to strive towards. I've experienced great results off the back of that in my own life. But if you don't have the systems to support it, you always fall short. And so having good systems that are the foundation of anything you're trying to achieve is like of the utmost importance.
Yeah.
So one of the things I love that James Clear talks about is just those little 5-minute habits every day. Like he said, if you've never read a book before, and I'm guilty of this all the time, not much of a reader, like to listen, right?
We've established that. Yep.
Yes. But I'll say, I'm going to start reading for an hour a day. That's not going to happen.
No, that's not going to happen.
But it's like, if you read for 5 minutes before bed and you consistently do that every day or 5 days a week, think about how much more information you've consumed by the year's end.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think those little habits, and that's where so many people go wrong with exercise.
Never
run before, and now they're trying to run 5Ks in a week.
Do you know what I did at the start of the year? I was like, because I am completely, if you look this up in the dictionary, there'll be a photo of me of setting lofty goals and not achieving them. But this year, what I've done on a fitness scale, that is I said, I'm going to do 1 push-up a week.
How
One push-up a week. Because I'm going pretty fucking well. It's quite easy.
Yeah.
It's an easy goal. But you know what the funny thing is? Is like when you do 1 push-up a week, that's all you got to do, you're probably going to do 10. You're not going to get down and do 1 push-up.
Yeah.
And then once that becomes a little bit of a habit, you feel good because you're hitting your 1 push-up a week. You're actually like, fuck, I might do another 2 push-ups today. I've already done my 1 push-up this week. I'm going to do and then you get down, you're like, well, fuck, what's the point of doing 2 push-ups? I'll just do 10 again. And then the next week I was like, fuck, I actually feel a bit stronger, and just pumped out 30, you know. But then it's just that goal.
Are you starting to gloat a bit now?
And now I go to the gym.
Wow. Well, you've been squatting a lot.
I've been squatting, man.
Squatting has been a theme of this year for you.
So I've been feeling good. I've been feeling really good.
Can I ask you this question? Because I think everyone can relate to this. What's the most unrealistic expectation you've ever put on your fitness goals for the year? Like, you would have been around some pretty elite characters during your AFL time, and you were elite. You know, you're in the AFL, which only so many people get to experience or are good enough to experience.
So you mean like a time of running or
or just something where you so I'll give you my example. I remember being 18 and thinking, I'll hit some solid weights the next 3 years, and I reckon by 21 I look like Sonny Bill.
Yeah, it didn't happen, did
it? No, it didn't. It didn't. I'm now 27.
There is obviously a case of genetic,
Correct. But what would be the craziest one you set?
Actually hit some pretty good ones.
Okay, go on.
No, I'm joking. I you know what's funny? I can't, nothing's springing to mind. But what's incredible about that time, right? And I think this is really interesting when you're working out, is it's all relative to the period. And I remember being in AFL and still feeling the way I do now about my body. So at the moment I'm like, oh fuck, want to get back, want to get a bit stronger, want to look a bit better. I don't really look like my teammates that I'm with every day. I need to get, lose and get the shredded, which I think is really healthy to have those sort of things because it's an internal drive. And as long as it doesn't get out of hand and to a, to a place that's unhealthy for you, which it definitely, that's not good. But I look back and I'm at photos of when I was playing footy and we, were at the beach, and I'm like, holy fuck, man. I didn't, why didn't you appreciate, how sharp you were, what sort of condition you were in? But it's just all relative.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's a weird one, right? I still want to get back, I'm still really trying to get back in shape now, but at that time, I still didn't think I was in good shape at all. When I was, running 6:10, I definitely wasn't doing that. I ran a 6:25 2K time trial on grass.
That's quick.
Benched 1 30, 1RM.
Boy, that's strong.
Bro, I had the record till recently, and I talk about this a lot, so people will be laughing if they've heard this before. It actually recently just got beaten by Darcy Jones, young player who, if you're a football fan listening to this show, I reckon could potentially win the Rising Star this year. Fucking started his knee in his first year. I'm really bullish on this kid. Plays with the Giants. Toby Green, one of my good mates, he reckons that this guy, like, he hasn't seen many young kids like him, the way he moves. Anyway, he just beat the record for power to weight ratio of, like, low weight, but lifts the amounts and stuff. So he just took it over at the Giants, a record. But I had that before him. So I was, like, moving well, but still just in my mind wasn't thinking it was good.
A little bit of a segue here. Can I say this? This is really odd, right? So after we chatted, I didn't realise the first time. I knew that you played for Carlton, but I didn't know that you played for the Giants.
Which is really interesting, even for my own mindset, right? Because, like, I still look at myself as a Giants player.
Yeah,
and I was there for 2 years and played 2 games, but I played like 30 odd at the 30, whatever that. I've played 41 games with 39 games at Carlton.
So here's the funny thing. So the last time I was here, I was speaking about Soph's family, and her mum and dad support the Giants and Carlton because there's a couple of boys from the area that Soph grew up in.
From the Gong?
No, from like Lockhart.
Who was that? Because that would have been a catchment area. Do you know their names?
Yeah, I forget the names off the top of my head, to be honest with you. But a couple of guys on like both teams. Like it might be like one in Carlton.
Yeah.
Maybe 2 or so in the Giants.
Well, because it's a New South. That's interesting actually, because my geography is terrible, but Wollongong.
But yeah, so Lockhart's like.
Oh, Lockhart. Where's Is that
Lockhart's like
inner west or like southwest?
4.5 hours west of Wollongong, so like country.
Yeah.
So Soph grew up.
Is it near Wagga Wagga and stuff like that?
Like
okay. Yeah, so that's catchment area for the Giants.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's funny because, you know, in the lead up, I was like, oh, we probably wanted the same grand final that you did.
The 2019 one?
No, like last year. Because last year they were both in semis.
Oh, fuck, sorry. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Do you know your AFL?
Fuck, not really.
No.
No, not
So
really.
I was going to ask you, so if that game come up in the GF,
fuck.
who do you support? Or are you at a comfortable position where you don't need to support anyone, you can just go enjoy the football?
Yeah, no, I don't really, like, to be completely honest, I support the relationships that I've got. So I put it this way. If you look at it's really, mate, this question keeps me up at night. Not really, but, like, I don't know how to answer it because Carlton, for me, at the time of my life, like, I probably wasn't in the best space of, like, learning and just wasn't a great, just working it out, growing up, as I was saying earlier. Like,
you're a young man.
Young man, I had no fucking idea what I was, who I was doing, what was going on. But that club, growing up there with my dad and going to, Prince's Park and going to the change rooms, you know, that smell of, like, you know, liniment oil and being in the, rooms and running out with the team and that jumper, that navy blue with the emblem, like that means a lot to me. And the club itself, position of it, the locale, like just everything. Like I grew up near it, special. But my time there, I personally wasn't in a good environment. I personally wasn't probably equipped to make the most of it.
Yeah. Then
when I went to, the dealings of then that, leaving, having that sort of like broken, and then leaving on good terms and everything, like complete love Carlton. I still go there and run with a few of the assistant coaches and stuff throughout the week. And then leaving and then getting a fresh opportunity in a new state where I've never lived at a team that doesn't have the biggest supporter base with just an incredible bunch of people and stuff where it just opened my eyes to what life could be and what is, that whole notion of like you can actually do whatever you want to do. And I still think to this day, like the most, by far, if you look at pivotal moments and stuff, like that whole time of like getting the opportunity to go to Sydney and take the rookie contract for 2 years at Giants, without a doubt, I'm forever in debt to the Giants for that. Not even from a footy perspective, just a pure life perspective of learning, growing, moving away, living with Juz, getting one of my best mates to come live with us. Just you speak about the journey before and like the destination was a delisting, right? But the journey was fucked. It was so good. It was just the fun we had, man, and just the play and the fuck ups and the, you know, like living paycheck to paycheck and the stress. But like, it was just, you can't buy it.
And because I think that's the funny thing, from the outsider's perspective, they would maybe think, I think that because people would see you now and you're super successful in this space, they'd maybe assume that you're on huge money at the Giants. But when you're on a rookie contract, that's not a lot of money, like to be living in Sydney. I think you spoke about this in the book, right?
I've got to be careful with, like, because it's $70,000 was on for 2 years in playing AFL, which in Australia is still a great wage if you're looking holistically across everything. But if you think about the biggest sport in Australia and you're playing in that and you're on that money and you've moved into state, like I had a mortgage and was renting in Sydney. Yes, I could have gone and lived somewhere else. Didn't want to do, like, I could have. To be honest, it's all fucking expensive as well. I still wanted to have fun, and I wasn't going there when I went, I was like, it was like when it happened, I instantly just grew up a bit and was like, shut the fuck up, old Dylan. Shut the fuck up. Fuck up, you fucking idiot. Let's just grow up and work it out, okay? And it was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm living here. Worst house. Was falling over. Was crook. Paid like $750 a week rent. Was on 70 grand. Do the math. Like, we actually couldn't afford it.
No.
And then my mate just universally was like, hey, I'm moving to Sydney. And we're like, oh my God, okay, come move in. And like, it just worked. It just worked. I don't know how. But the money wasn't there. It didn't bother me. It didn't bother me, man. I swear to God, this is how weird it is. And like, I'm getting weird in this, but like,
get as weird.
I'm going to have to get real weird, because there's so many parts of this story where like, this is how I learned sort of like the manifestation stuff. And I don't even like talking about this too much publicly, because it's like, it's so weird. But watch so many Jim Carrey videos, right? You know, those like shit YouTube videos where they talk about like, he goes, oh, I wrote the checks down and put them in my wallet and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, I was in that phase of my life, and I still am. But I went up there, found this place, did all these things, and the story actually is, if you go back how I got there, is in my head, I pretended when I was enlisted, no one had called, I pretended that I was moving to Sydney for footy. My manager called me a day later and said that the Giants have called, they want to have a meeting. I was like, okay, that's a coincidence. But in my head, I'm like, no, it's not, because I'm going to Sydney. Went up there, didn't like, you know, had the meeting, all that sort of stuff. Came back. They were like, we're not going to take you. I called, so Leon called me, so we're not going to take you in the delisted for agency. And I was like, yeah, I reckon you should take me in the rookie draft. And he's like, okay. Weird. But in my head, I was like, I'm moving to Sydney in the rookie draft. He was like, well, I don't know if it was an option or not, but there was no guarantees. And people were like to me, what are you doing next year? I hadn't told anyone about this. They're like, what are you doing next year? And I'm like, oh, I don't know yet. But in my head, I'm like, no, you're moving to Sydney. Like, you got to go play footy for the Giants. This is like, this is off one chat with them. But I just kept like telling myself that I was going. Didn't even tell Juz. Juz had no idea. I didn't even tell her I went to Sydney. Like, because I just kept it in my mind. It was freaky. Anyway, long story short, it all happens, all that sort of stuff. Then I forgot about that. But then there was these parts where I was like, oh, I really need this, really need that. And it got to this month where I had like no money. I had the house, but I had to make these. I knew my ins and outs of like what I had to make to just maintain everything. And I remember all of a sudden, two things happened at these times. One time, randomly, money just popped into my account. I'm not like from the club, but it wasn't like, I don't know where it came from, but I wasn't fucking asking questions. Like, it was just like, I don't know how I got there.
Yeah, you don't inquire about
I didn't inquire. I didn't say, hey, you've paid me too much. I was just like, you know what, I'll just cop this and just, I'm not sure what it is, but thank fuck I needed it. The next time, there was a hailstorm in Sydney, which you get a lot in in East. Yeah.
Really?
Well, fuck, you did when I was there.
It's pretty rich coming from this guy who lives in
No,
Melbourne.
because it rains a lot more in Sydney than it does in Melbourne. Do you know that? per millage, I'm pretty sure it does.
Okay.
Maybe it doesn't. I don't
Okay.
know. Anyway, mate, I'm pro Sydney, so don't stress.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it hailed in Sydney one day. Everyone's out the front covering up their cars. I wasn't home. My car got absolutely smashed. It was worth about $500. I just about to go and have to pay like a couple grand to fix it. It got ridden off, and I got $8,000 for it. And it was worth minus $3,000 at that stage. And I was like, what the fuck? Like it just kept I just kept trickling along. I don't know. Just very lucky.
So I find this is an interesting
It's weird.
conversation because one thing I've been saying I was saying this to Ali yesterday. I would often say to people, I'm not a spiritual person,
I am.
right? But then I've listened to myself back on a couple episodes of my podcast last year that I just wanted to listen back and check in on some of what I thought was my best work and go, what was the recipe for what we done there?
Pat on the back.
Yeah, a little pat on the back. And one of the things I noticed I said in almost every one of the episodes, just before I dropped something that was very spiritual, very Mr. Universe kind of guy, I said, I'm not much of a spiritual cat, but, and then I'd say
that's
the
nearly,
next piece.
it's nearly the no offense, but.
Correct.
So it's like you're actually the
You're
opposite.
actually very spiritual.
Yeah.
And my mate Joey said to me, mate, I think you're more spiritual than you realise. And so that's one of the things that I think is quite funny is like almost you need a little bit of spiritual awareness to lean into that stuff. And so I've now realised that, the universe often conspires in your favour when you allow it to.
It's the gratitude thing, right? The dilemma too. I spoke about this once with Hugh Van Colenberg. So early days, like this was like really early days of the Resilience Project. Had him on the pod, and it's like gratitude. People, with gratitude, you get all this incredible benefits out of it. And it's like when you become more grateful, so many more awesome things happen in your life. Right? This is what happens. But are you just being more aware of those good things that are happening in your life because you're practicing gratitude? And it's the same as a universe thing, I think too. Like, I don't know. There's no wrong or right answer because they're both good. It doesn't fucking matter. They're both good for you. So whether the gratitude and you writing in your diary things that are going great, then you realize more things are going great. Or if it's you're just being more aware, like they're not, is it manifestation or is it just being aware of shit and appreciating it and focusing on things? Because the more things you focus on that you want, it'll come to you.
There's a rule or a law or a name for this, but let's just call it the gratitude bias.
Law of attraction.
Law of attraction.
Is that what you're talking about?
Or
are you just making...
There's something else that I heard the other day, right?
Okay.
Someone explained this concept.
Was this in
me.
another book that you
It was in another
didn't
book.
read?
No, it was actually sitting down face to face with someone, and he said to me, "Do you know that thought or that feeling?" And I say that this guy was actually challenging me a little bit in a healthy way, because I, as you know, have the utmost self-belief in the world. But one thing that I have had quite a limiting belief towards the last couple of years in particular is finances.
Yeah.
Kind of like sacrifice the financial job, which by the time people are hearing this, I'm actually back selling some houses, hit me up. And one of the things that the last couple of years I've been quite, negative about finances because I didn't really expect them to come in the form of podcasting or speaking for a while. I knew it was a longer game and it became sort of the biggest stress in my life. And he said to me, "What kind of car do you drive?" And I said, "I drive a red Mazda 3. And he said, "So tell me, when you got that car, did you immediately drive it out of the lot and then for the couple months that followed, continued for the first time ever to notice other red Mazda 3s? I was like, yes. Like almost instantly, I started to notice all these cars that were exactly the same as mine. He said it's the same with any sort of change in gratitude or belief or anything. The minute that you become positively conscious and aware of something, like the universe will affirm that thought or feeling.
Yes.
And so it's so true that you can do that both positively and negatively.
Yes.
Like if you choose to be the victim of something, it'll feel as though life continues to land shots.
Mate, the biggest one for me in that is like for, I reckon, a year, I'd say, I'm a bit of an anxious guy. No fucking shit. If I keep telling myself that I'm anxious all the time, I'm going to be anxious. Like, I just don't even acknowledge it anymore. Yes, I have the anxiety and I think about it. But, like, I've nearly 50% halved it from not just announcing it every fucking 2 seconds. Because I'm not, like, you're manifesting your own voice, like, into what you're saying. You know the really interesting thing with the finance thing? There's, like, a lot of studies on this and... Like, you've got to look. I'm not going to give advice.
Cite any of
oh,
them?
no. See, what I do is I don't sort of cite books if I haven't
There's
picked
no
them
reference
up.
schedule here.
I was about to. No. Psychology of money is really interesting. It's super interesting and it's hard. You've done before about like the trajectories of where we're at the moment. Like, it's hard to. I can't give you a recipe for this, but what I can give you is my recipe of what I did to get from a place of a passion that I want to turn into a career. And what I know about that is it is really a lot of it, unfortunately, is actually working smarter, not harder, which the chat we had about yesterday, just around like the clips. It's sacrifice, and it's sacrifice smarter, not harder. That's actually really nice. I like that. I've never used that before.
Let's
I like that.
Let's make sure you put that in the diary.
I'm putting that in the fucking diary.
Yeah.
I think it's so much about smarter, not harder, because there's so many ways where we go like, you know what? I'm cutting out. I'm not buying any expensive food. I'm doing this. I'm cutting everything out so I can do this. But there's actually just some other little tweaks and unlocks that you can make. Like when I going back to my story because it's not just woo-woo. This is the evidence-based, and I understand everyone else might not be in this position to be able to do this. But when I left footy, I knew how hard that was going to be to transition, get a new job, maintain my investment property, and continue a lifestyle. And I knew it wasn't going to happen because I'd had 10 weeks to sort of set it up. So my car got written off, as you remember.
Yep.
So I didn't have a car. No more loan on that. So there was no bills. I cancelled every single fucking subscription I've ever had. Like, there was nothing coming out. Like, nothing. Like, Netflix and all that, I was using someone else's account, like whoever else it was. Juz and I moved back into her parents' place for nearly 12 months before we just got back on our feet, worked out what we wanted to do. So that was a bit of a sacrifice. Like, you don't really, at sort of 27 years of age, off an 8-year AFL career, and you've just been engaged, not the coolest thing in the world to move back in with your missus' parents. Like, it's not that comfortable, but internally grateful for it. And it was a great period of learning and got, close with them. And what that then allowed us to do was not have those burdens of keeping up with rent. And I understand some people might not have the opportunity to live back with their parents, or maybe their parents aren't having their own, like whatever that is, I'm totally aware there's other situations where that's not possible. But the point of it is, I just tried to, and I learnt this from the time before, mind you, because this wasn't my first time being sacked. I'd been sacked earlier and I was living in my own house and I was like, holy fuck, how the fuck am I going to repay, do all this? I don't know how it's going to work. So it scared the shit out of me for the next time that I was prepared. So moved back in, got a job part-time at a radio station that was on just normal wage. I think it was $27 an hour, what I was doing. But what that did allow me to do was work in an industry that I knew I wanted to work into. And it would keep me on developing my dream of what I wanted to do. And then it would surround me with microphones, people that are better than me at what I do, learn how to produce a show, all those things, whilst getting paid to do it. Yes, it wasn't the ideal job, but I did all that. Caught the train to work every day from Montmorency to Southern Cross, which, if anyone out there that's fucking took me about 45 minutes. Didn't actually mind that, by the way. Just turned the AirPods on.
Yeah.
It was pretty shit, but it wasn't too bad. It was worse on the way home when you're tired. You just want to get home. In the morning was fine. And just slowly built confidence and started going, okay, this was this month, made X dollars, maybe get back to Stan. Or, worked it out this month, like slowly started. Then I was like, you know what? If I can save this, I've got a studio room off my brother-in-law who was renting a place in Albert Park, and he goes, mate, for $100 a month, he was doing it to help me out. $100 a month, you can rent this room. And even back then, I was like, that's a fucking, like, do I take the risk? Do I lock that in? It wasn't even a contract, like, but he said, you know, so I did that, and then it just slowly started like churning.
Let me ask you this, because
I don't know. Does that sound?
No, it does sound
possible in terms of.
It's so relevant.
I just don't want it to sound like
You started the podcast and it was a great success.
Well, no, not that at all. I wanted to start. I just wanted to sound that it's actually achievable, and I'm not saying that I did this from like nothing. I'm just saying there were some sacrifices, but I want to know that like that's how I did it financially with no burden, and like didn't have a kid at that stage, wasn't going through IVF at that stage, you know. So it was sort of like a time to just really go fuck it, and like I had job offers from local footy clubs for lots of money to go and play local footy in a career that I didn't fucking want to do. But that would have locked me in 5 days a week and on the weekends, and I would have put no effort into actually what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So
that's the funny thing. So I remember reading in your book like how hard you and Juz tried to have Maxi before it happened. And
I remember we were trying in that pool house. Oh, that sounds weird.
Yeah,
but
let's hope the in-laws don't listen to that.
No, I meant like we were trying. Yeah. That's when I remember the discussion going like, hey, let's start trying. Like,
do you think, so when you look back on that, I can imagine, and you know, we've spoken about it, the pain of coming up short, you know, and like, it's not happening the way you want it to, and you so desperately want to bring a little human into the world that you can love and give time, energy, attention, so you can experience that, you know, you so badly want that. And it's just not happening, and you're going through the pain of that, and it's heartbreaking. But it's all come at the right time, really, hasn't it? Like, if you look at the timing, no matter how hard that was, you're in the best place right now to love
I'm
Max.
So grateful that he's here. But it's funny, right? Like, the worst thing you can hear is someone in that, you know, that, well, for anything really, but I think especially in fertility and with a couple that's trying to sort of have a baby is like, oh, you know, it'll happen when it's ready to.
Or
and
don't
you're
stress.
Like, fuck up. Like, we want it now, you know? Like, if it happened fucking 6 months earlier, it still would have been great. Still would have worked out pretty well.
For sure.
Or a year earlier, still would have made it work.
Well, that's the beauty of hindsight, but when
it
you're
is,
in it.
But
yeah,
would I change it now? No. Like, wouldn't have Max. We might have another Max, but wouldn't have this Max. Wouldn't have Juz and I. Such an interesting relationship, man. Love her. She's incredible. Sometimes I don't even know if she likes me or not. But I think that our love is so strong that it's just like, I just know she loves me. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy. She's crazy. Like, you get home, how much you just don't have to try. Like, it's just like, we just, in this, you know, position of housemates, teammates, husband and wife. It's really cool. It's really cool. And you just work hard together, love each other, and she keeps me so honest. And one thing that we're really across is like, I look at, you know, when I did those values I was talking about earlier, I look at those values, moments, environment, freedom, growth, and I'm like, these are actually these are Juz's values too, without even doing it, you know. Like, I think that's the cool part. So
that's the special thing about love like that, and I'm so lucky that I have that at home. Where
my missus doesn't hug me though, or kiss me, unfortunately. No. She hates me. I think I'm just so annoying.
I often think sometimes Sophie's very affectionate.
It's just like like, I'm so like over her in terms of like trying to what am I even trying to say? Trying to like, hug and talk, and she's just like, get the fuck off me. Like, I've just spent all day with a baby. Like, I need to just scroll on my phone without you talking to me.
Isn't that funny, right? So Soph and I are very affectionate. I've been here for 4 days. It's the longest I've ever spent away from Soph, right? So we've been FaceTiming for like 3 hours a day, right?
Wow, that's...
Love her. Like, I miss her so much.
Yeah, okay. I don't miss Juz. Like, we don't. It's sort of, we're at the stage where, like, you don't miss each other.
You need the bit of...
You need it sometimes.
So here's the funny thing. I often, though, think that sometimes Soph wishes she could just mute me, because I talk a lot.
Yeah, right, I can see that.
I've
You're
always...
you're the probably... Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I was going to say you're the me in my relationship sort of thing.
Yeah, probably, right? And so the other day we're driving the car, and I think probably the person I'm the biggest fan of in the world right now, and have been for a long time, but my love is ever growing for this man, Guy Ritchie. I love a Guy Ritchie movie. I'm fascinated by all things Guy Ritchie. Yeah. For the life of me, I don't know why, but I was listening to Guy Ritchie on a podcast the other day talking about cooking. Yeah. Anything this guy touches or does, I just want to know about it. And I've actually got a quote on my inside that says, you must be the master of your own kingdom, which is a quote from Guy Ritchie on Joe Rogan's podcast.
Yeah, right.
And there's a whole philosophy behind this, right?
Guy Ritchie the singer, right?
No. Who's Guy Ritchie the singer? Are you
Fuck,
thinking of Lionel Richie?
I'm thinking of Lionel Richie. I'm like, who the fuck's... Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Do you know, I'm not joking with you on this.
Yeah.
I'm not joking. This is extremely embarrassing. I have been blending Guy Ritchie and Lionel Richie my whole life. So I've been like, how talented is this musician, director?
And you're like, God,
like,
he
wow,
can tap into this, like...
He does a lot.
Yeah, like,
it's
God,
two
he taps
people.
into this like African-American soul voice when he sings, but when you just hear him in an
Holy
interview, he's
shit.
got that like Cockney...
That is hilarious.
That's crack up. I love that you thought I was talking about Lionel
Richie. He's got a great daughter, Sophia Richie.
Yeah. I love
that.
Fuck,
okay, sorry.
So Guy Ritchie, the director, responsible for Snatch,
Yep.
The Gentleman,
yeah, Gentleman's
Lock,
a great
Stock.
film. Yep.
So many great movies, right?
Yep.
And one of the concepts that he talks about, I was sharing this with Soph the other day, and she was like, yeah, I know, darling, you've told me this before. And I'm like, yeah, but hold on, wait. Like, it's super relevant to something we're just talking about. Let me explain it again in this context. And I could just tell that after I'd finished with the 20 minutes of explaining this thing, she was just like, I could just tell like her smile and giggle like, yeah, same thing, darling. She just wanted to turn me
Let me
on.
ask you a question. I'm really curious. Like, when you get home, do you switch off?
Yeah, I do. And to be honest with you, so I used to go to a run club like a couple of times a week. And this is how I'm noticing that I'm becoming more introverted. I used to go to this run club 3 times a week, and we'd run for an hour, sometimes 2, and we'd stop and we'd have a coffee for an hour, and I'd speak to 30 different people, and all this energy out, and then I'd still have energy to go for a coffee. And just as I'm getting a little bit older, and maybe this is me just becoming more at peace with myself and like who I am and what's important to me, and I don't need anyone else to validate me. Like, I'm in a really good place, mentally, emotionally. I'm like, I love that crew, but on a Wednesday now, I just want to go run with my 2 closest mates and just have a chat, just the 3 of us. Yeah. And be able to laugh and not have to be a conversation, like in a conversation with everyone and be everything to everyone and always be the podcast guy who's chatting. Yeah. Not that those people expect that of
No,
me,
but you expect it of
yourself.
yourself. Yeah, 100%. And like, even just a deeper reason of why I asked this is before I'm saying like, I just don't know how, and I'm amazed and inspired by your consistency of onness, because I've found the more time goes by, I just feel myself getting so much worse at that, where I'm like, I'm avoiding a lot of, not in a bad sense at all, but I'm just avoiding a lot of social things, because I'm just like, fuck, I don't have the energy right now to continue doing so many things. That's crazy.
I get that in the truest sense, because I'm starting to feel that.
There you go, yeah.
I have to ask you this question, Dyl. Almost like as a way, I think we're going to wrap up in a minute. But I really want to ask you this. So to just tap into the Guy Ritchie thing,
Which one? Love his music.
Love his music. God is a handsome chocolate man. So the Guy Ritchie directed King Arthur with Charlie Hunnam.
Oh, I
right?
love that.
Great movie.
Oh,
And something you spoke about is like the essence of narratives and novels are based off this theory. Well, not this theory, but this story
yes.
of the prodigal son.
Yes.
Have you heard the story of the prodigal son?
Yes. Can you explain it to me?
I'm going to refresh you and hope I don't bugger this up.
I'm just... Because I've just made a mistake between Lionel Richie and Guy Ritchie.
King
Arthur, I just want to clarify the movie we're talking about because...
The sword comes from the stone.
Yes. Okay, with
right?
the Australian guy. Isn't he Australian?
He's not. Charlie Hunnam isn't Australian.
Do we just love him?
You're thinking of the guy from Vikings who
Yes,
looks
I am.
quite similar
Different guy.
to him.
But anyway, love that movie. When I said love that movie, I'm happy I did clarify this because I was actually thinking of King with Timothy Chalamet.
Okay, yes.
Have you seen that?
Also a good movie.
Great.
Timothy Chalamet.
Yeah.
Man of the Hour.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Sorry, I'm just happy I clarified that.
Yeah, clarify that.
Yeah.
So, he was talking about the story
son.
of the prodigal son,
Yep.
right? And he's sharing this on Joe Rogan. And it's a part of this. I'll send you the 15-minute clip.
Yep.
Spend 15 minutes while you're sitting at the airport tonight.
Yep.
Ready to go on another holiday for the year. It's such a luxurious lifestyle. You deserve it. And watch this 15-minute clip because it really is, I think it's important. He said that the prodigal son is almost the beginning of these narratives that we experience in our own life, and essentially like the foundation of all stories. And he says, so the story of the prodigal son is there's this father and his two sons. And the father is a farmer, and he has the eldest son who's incredibly loyal to the father. He stays by the father's side. He does everything that the father asks of him, and he's so loyal to being there on the farm with his dad. You know, he's going to take that on his life work. The younger brother, on the other hand, is a little bit restless and a little bit naughty, and he decides to stray from the father and leave the farm and go out into the world. And the analogy that he uses in here, and I'm sure this isn't the story that comes from the Bible, is that the younger brother goes out and he, snorts coke off strippers' tits, and he goes and he's living this crazy experience in this crazy life, basically prostituting himself to the world in search of these new experiences, trying to find something that makes him tick. And he eventually gets to a point where it's all failed, and he finds himself with a job of feeding pigs. And without communicating with the father at all, the father senses that something's wrong with the younger son, and he decides to sacrifice the fatty calf to go and feed the son and bring him back home. And in the literal sense, you're like, well, this is so unfair because the older brother stayed so true to his father. He'd done everything right. He was by his side. He sacrificed himself to be there in that role and to take on that responsibility. But the father has rewarded the younger son, who's a fuck up. But the essence of the story is that it's not literal. It's very much a feeling, and it's something internal, that the father represents just us, and the older son is the intellect that kind of stays true to the path and knows what to do. But the younger son is that part of ourselves that needs to go out and prostitute ourselves to the world and make some mistakes and learn and grow, what we spoke about earlier, to really figure out that you yourself are enough. You don't need the world to give you anything to prove that you're enough. The Lamborghini won't make you feel like you're enough. The fancy house won't make you feel like you're enough. You have to come back to yourself. But to come back to yourself and to be comfortable with who you are, you have to experience the world. So it's this dichotomy, right? But I think about my story and how that fits the equation. And I think about you and how that fits the equation. And I think that we often go on these journeys in life in search of something. But what we're really in search of is ourselves. That place where we feel full, authentic, on purpose. And I really feel like, for all of the twists and turns, I've reached that place in my life. And I really see that in you too. And when you think about it in the story of King Arthur, is that all these men who want to be the king try to pull that sword from the stone. The stone, as Guy Ritchie describes, being the material world, and they can't. It won't budge. But this guy who has lived through the hard times, who has come up on the streets, and is a king within himself, pulls the sword from the stone without any struggle at all, because he doesn't need it. And when you don't need it, when you're not desperate, when you're not needy, the world's ready for you to have it. I wonder how you relate to that.
Oh, Jesus Christ. That was fantastic. Felt like I was... Mate, that was awesome. I'm just like processing that.
I feel like the whole pod was a warm up for me to nail that.
Holy fuck, man! Did you practice that? That was impressive.
No, but it's something I think about quite a
Mate,
bit.
it was.
You know how people say, how often do men think about the Roman Empire?
Yeah, is that
I
your
think
one?
about that 15-minute clip
See,
quite often.
I've never the prodigal son. I've heard of that theory. I've never known that's actually what it is, but I've always heard prodigal son or actually, yeah,
It's a famous parable.
yeah. Well, I didn't know that. There you go. God, there's so much to unpack in that, but I think that. Yeah, if I'm relating it to my life, I loved when you ended it about, the movie and the part around, like, he's the only one who didn't want it and that's why he got it.
Mm.
If you haven't seen the film, it's probably hard to relate to that. But fuck, man, you've actually just stumped me. Like, I'm just still working my way through it. Like, it was really cool. I definitely see, I understand, like, I get it. There's definitely parts of, like, things that, you want to go and be the son that goes away and does the things and tries these things. Because I'm relating it to myself, right?
Mm.
And I'm like, what part of my life am I living in? And I think I'm definitely in the more of the, not the way you described it, of going out. But I think I don't know. Like, I'm relating it in the sense of, like, in a like, the easy path was to go and do something like that, but can't.
Because let me see how. I don't
know if I'm. This is a new parable. I'm just trying to. Yeah.
Let me talk to you about how I see it in you.
Yeah. Set it. Yeah. Maybe that would be better.
So I see you growing up as this young guy, and we joked about it earlier. But you grew up with a dad who was great at football, right?
Mm-hmm.
And won 3 flags at Carlton. And like your whole life growing up, as many young men do, you have this passion for this vision that you can see. And as young men, don't we just aspire to be like our fathers a lot of the time? Like for me, I was saying this to Jack Post the other day, tattoo of the Hercules statue on my left upper arm, and it's representative of my dad, like this role model.
Yeah.
And the way that the tattoo's done is it's like looking down at you. So it's like I'm looking up at this thing like, I want to be that man. I want to be this strong, stoic figure that just represents strength and everything that I think is like what a man is about. And so like you go in search of, for a long time, I wanted to be a police officer. I wanted to be a rugby league player because my dad was all of these things. And so you look to this and you think that's your path in the world. But ultimately in the process of it, sometimes you find that it's not so fruitful. And you find yourself at a place where you eventually come to consciousness of, that isn't me. That isn't what I'm meant to be doing in this world. And you had that moment. Like when you left football, you had that moment. And now I look at you in this and it fits like a glove. And I don't know if you feel that way all the time.
Yeah, definitely. No, like I can 100% relate to that. And even to level, I don't know if this even is there again, but it's like, that crossroad or whatever you call it, like there's probably going to be 6 more of those. And like, maybe this isn't forever. I don't know. But I suppose to like really bring it all into like a wrap up, it's like, it's a mix of everything we've spoken about today, but I think the main thing is like that part about just your values, like, and being aligned to them, and that'll get you to those points. Like, what you're saying then about like the footy thing, and like if you look at like, what's really interesting? I've never done this, but if you look at the footy thing, a lot of those values actually do work in there. So there's moments you probably have incredible, like, fuck, we used to go to Grand Canyon and do all these awesome things. There's environment, like you're surrounded by really incredible people, but also it can be quite, like, depends the environment you're in. Obviously, freedom, I'd say that problem doesn't really fit because you're quite locked into a rigid schedule. And if your contract's 5 years, that's 5 years of knowing what you're doing. Yeah. Obviously, at the end of the year, you can do whatever you want. Growth, yes, 100%. But it's just, I just thought it was an interesting exercise to see where that is. But in saying that, maybe freedom wasn't a thing for me back then, and I didn't want freedom, which I didn't. I loved knowing where I was going to be. Now it's important. So I think for me, it's like once I change, it's like you change the value, then you can work out where you want to go.
Growth and evolution. It's a part of life.
Man, always love sitting down with you.
Always love sitting down with you.
Can we put this on Dyl and Friends as well? After you? Yeah. We'll listen hopefully on Brad's, but then after that we'll put it through Dylan. They'll be hearing
It's
this up.
whenever you
They'll be hearing this up.
whenever you want to put it on Dylan Friends, we can put it on Dylan Friends. Always grateful, my friend.
Mate, it was great. Just want to say I love you.
I love you.
Appreciate you. I think we need to. Yeah, we need to sit down with Ali, you, me, and Ali, and have a bit of a. When Ali, you need to do a pod with Ali, man.
I will.
But we
I
go down
promise
to
this
his
year.
house. We go down to his house in McRae and have these like weekend lock-ins. And it's not the lock-in you're thinking about. It's like phones off, journals out, zero in. It's, mate, you'd fucking froth it.
I like this.
It's, and that's where, you know, the point before about the whole like shut the fuck up thing that we're talking about is it's almost like schedule in your shut the fuck ups and schedule in your zero ins.
I like that.
Because when I'm with Ali, like I say this to Ali, because he's always on. Always. And I say this, I'm like, man, would you ever switch off? Because I think he needs to get better at switching off. And I go, mate, I've got 2 days in like 3 weeks. I'm like, are you available? Let's go. And we will give our undivided attention to just zeroing in on life. We can talk anything. But probably at the cafe yesterday when we were out for lunch, it's hard for me to do that all the time because it's just like shit's going on. I'm like fucking this, that, and everything. Yeah. So
and like everyone's like, holy shit, Dyl Buckley's here.
No, that's not happening. But it's very hard to do it. So I'm very big on scheduling in those things. So it's like, yeah, I schedule in because I'm probably the opposite maybe to you two in the sense of like I schedule in my really deep times where like I'm like, okay, Juz, Max, I'm going away for 3 days. I took Friday off work, Saturday, Sunday, and you know still talk and like chat with them, but pretty much phones on, do not disturb, and we just like sit down and journal and like,
I like that.
Chat, talk about shit, explore shit, get deep but have some fun and yeah, it's mate, you should come. It's fucking awesome.
Yeah, I'm up for it one time.
Yeah,
Let's
for
do
sure.
it.
Done.
Oi, pleasure.
Pleasure, privilege, honor.
Cheers.
See you, bro.